It is our pleasure to be joined by the most beloved sports journalist on planet Earth. Holly Rowe is in the house. How we doing, girl?
Stop it. Stop it. Please
Come
say it
on.
again.
It's true.
Stop
It's
it. Please say
true.
it again. I love
What's
that you
up?
feel that way. That makes me happy.
How obviously having you on to talk about to preview the championship series between OU and Florida State, but do you want to just talk a little Women's College World Series with you before we get to the matchup? You have covered this event for years. Now, how cool is it for you to see what this event has become here in Oklahoma City?
It's really crazy. This is my 19th season covering the World Series. It would have been my 20-year anniversary, but we lost the 1 year to COVID. And it's wild. Like, I started covering this when there were just, what one lower level grandstand that just went about to the third base and first base dugouts. There was no outfield. There was just a grass, there was just a fence back there. There was a grass berm on either side of the right and left field. And now we've got a double decker stands. We're setting attendance records every time. There's 13,000 people there. It's people coming from all over the world. I have people texting me from Australia that they're up watching games at 4:30 in the morning. People came from Canada. So I just think it's really taken over the sports world. Softball was already a really big sport with, how do you say it? Like the layman, the recreational. Like, I know so many people that play in recreational softball leagues. So I think softball has this really wide appeal that people didn't really understand until we sort of started putting games on TV at this level, and it's just boomed, like just out of control.
So there are several things like talking points that have come up because of OU, right? And one of them is the dominance that they've had here recently in this stretch that they're on. Is it good for the sport? Is it bad for the sport? How do you view that?
It is great for the sport. I would always get so frustrated when every year UConn would get to the Final Four, because they got to the Final Four for 11 straight years. They've won 11 national championships. This has been the most dominant sports team I ever covered in sports. And every year, some male writer would say, this is bad for women's basketball. And those of us who are in the sport, lives it and breathes it, I would say it was the opposite, because it was setting a standard that people were trying to chase. And at the beginning, people thought it was impossible. And then people kept trying and kept getting better. And now you see programs all around the country that are bigger, better, good enough. And that's all because they've been chasing UConn. You could say that women's basketball is in better health with more teams, more talent, more depth, more stars than it's ever been. And I will say UConn gets a lot of credit for that. So Oklahoma, listen, they're in an unusual place because they have kind of been this loved team, this scrappy team. Everybody loves Patty Gasso. She's an ambassador of the sport. Well, now that they're this dominant juggernaut, they're getting a lot of pushback. They're getting judgment. I just literally came from a meeting with Patty, and I want to read these comments to you. She said, it's really hard to stay in the bubble of just us. The expectations are beyond belief. And I have to figure out a way to make sure that we stay there and I'm steady for them. But the judgment is so strong against us right now. And I just think it's really interesting to see that people, for some reason, are taking a 51 game win streak as a negative. It's only beautiful. It's only positive. It's only awesome that these young women have found a way to compete at this level. So I find it fascinating how people take winning in this right now.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to conversations we've had about Alabama football, you and I in the past. And one of the main reasons you look at the Women's College World Series being in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma's excellence in this run that they're on. People like to say, hey, it's the home field advantage that's playing a huge role. Like, how important do you think that is to Oklahoma's success on the biggest stage in the sport?
I do think it's important. So I actually can understand and see people's anxiety and concern about Oklahoma getting too much of a home field advantage. And here's why. They're driving back to Norman and sleeping in their own beds some nights. They are driving back to Norman and using their own practice facility and their own technology. And no other team here is getting to do that. I think that is not fair. But the crowds, it wasn't always for Oklahoma softball. I've been here and done games where there weren't that many Oklahoma fans in the stands. Patty Gasso has built this. People are coming to watch OU because of what she's built. So I can understand that, if you're Florida State, you have one tiny little section because it's hard to get here from Tallahassee. That could be frustrating, but this is the community that invested in women's softball. This is the community that decided to build this big stadium to accommodate the growth. And so this is where it is. And until other communities would want to step up and bid on this and put in the resources, then this is where it is. And that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah. You know me and my love for Oklahoma City, right? I don't hide that, but
you hate to hear the haters on it, right?
I just get annoyed when people, especially softball people, when they say, oh, you need to move it. You need to move it somewhere else. And they never offer where it should be moved, who's investing. Like, my hometown has spent an incredible amount of money and time and invested in the sport. And these people want to move it just because OU's too good. That is frustrating to me.
Yeah, I totally get both sides of this conversation because yes, there's an advantage when it's, out of the 13,000, there's probably 8 of them that are cheering for Oklahoma. I get that. And if you're an opponent, that doesn't feel good. But they built this and it had to get like this. If you picked this up and moved it to, let's make an argument for California. Are they going to get 13,000 people every night? I don't know. We haven't seen them do that. Are we going to pick this up and move it to Florida? We can't play in Florida at this time of year. It's too hot. Are they going to pick it up and move it to Atlanta? I don't know. Why would you just move it for the sake of moving it? I don't think that's right. But, I love it. I love it. It's a great conversation to have. And it's because we've built this. This has been built over years and years and years. And it's only gotten crazy like this really since the stadium expanded in the last 6 years. So thank goodness Oklahoma's been good and got the money, and that this community was invested and wanted to spend money on bringing more people here. It's great for the economy, but they stepped up and did it, so they shouldn't be punished.
Yep, I completely agree. Thank you for making me feel good, Holly. Okay, Patty Gasso, you cover all kinds of sports. Where does she kind of stack up for you when it comes to the best coaches you've been around and you've covered?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the privilege. I'm one of these lucky people that I have been around Joe Paterno, Nick Saban, some of the greats. Lavelle Edwards at BYU was one of my great coaches. Bobby Bowden at Florida State, Gina Oriema, Pat Summitt, Tara Vanderveer, like the greatest of greatest coaches that we have ever seen in our lifetime. I've been really lucky to cover and get to know them intimately and personally. And Patty is as good as all of those people. And it's because she has this unique competitive mindset. I've played cards with her in her house, and she wants to kick my you-know-what. We have thrown down in some vicious Uno games in her living room. I am currently the champion. I did win the last time I played Uno with the Gasso family. But like everything she does is competitive. And that's how I am. And so I speak her language. I admire it. I see it. And the other thing I really love is she set a standard with Oklahoma softball, program building. You have to set this standard and then keep hitting your own standard year after year. And she calls it a championship mindset. This is a woman who routinely would kick All-Americans out of practice, kick people out of the practice if they weren't meeting the Oklahoma softball standard. And I think that piece is really hard, is to build a culture, build a program, and set a standard, and then keep meeting it year after year. We're seeing Georgia start to figure that out right now in football, and Kirby Smart start to figure out how do you repeat and push that standard. It's really hard. And I'm seeing Patty Gasso do it, and I'm just in awe of her. She's really fantastic.
Okay. I agree. By the way, I definitely agree. Let's talk about the championship series. When the bracket came out, this felt like the most likely matchup that we'd end up with in the champ series. Florida State, what have you seen from them so far? What has stood out with what you've seen so far from them at the Women's College World Series?
Yeah, grit and determination. And this is a feisty team. Lonnie Alameda actually played softball at OU. She was, that's where she started her softball career. She was a transfer from a smaller college. I think she went to St. Mary's University in Texas, then transferred to Oklahoma and played for the rest of her career there. So all things do run through Norman. But Lonnie Alameda has done a great job with those same things I was just telling you about, is culture building. You know, they won the national championship back in 2018, and she's been able to build that Florida State expectation and culture to do what Patty Gasso is doing in repeat and replenish and reload and get that same standard of performance out of the new players. She does some really cool stuff motivationally and psychologically. They've been reading this book by Trevor Moawad. He's been a performance coach in college sports for a long time. He passed away recently, but he wrote a book with Russell Wilson called It Takes What It Takes. And it's something like the everyday guide to gaining control of your life by neutral living. If you react and you get too high or you get too low and get depressed, you don't succeed because you have these wild swings of emotion. You need to be staying neutral to perform and execute every day. So they have a lot of cool things. One of them is execution over expectation. Is you can get bogged down by all the expectations from the outside, but if you just focus on the execution of this pitch, this play, this bunt, you will succeed. And then they also have these cool wristbands. So they have these wristbands that if there's a moment, so Gabe, let's say you and I are doing a show together and I make a mistake and I start dropping my head and I'm down on it and I'm just like, oh man, you would make me change my wristband from one wrist to the other to do a physical change, a physical movement to try to reset my mind. And then you would give me a pep talk and say, listen, Holly, you're better than this. You're a better researcher than this. Get your facts straight, get this together. And you would pull me out of my failure. And it's a physical way to reset failure with these wristbands. And so you'll see all the kids on the field tomorrow with these wristbands on. And they just have some really cool culture pieces that I think will resonate with fans because it makes them this gritty, feisty, resilient team on the field.
Those are great pieces of information that only you have, right? That's your specialty right now. Now, looking at what has to happen for them on the field for Florida State to challenge Oklahoma, because Oklahoma comes in as the favorite. Just how good does Catherine Sandercock have to be?
Yeah, the thing that's interesting, so Catherine Sandercock's been their ace. She told us today a story that I wonder if OU fans remember. They were 6 outs away from winning the championship in 2021. They had won game 1. They were 6 outs away, and then an error led to a Jocelyn Allo home run, and the rest is history. So she reminded us of that today, that she was on the mound in those moments of failure. And she said, I have felt that disappointment of not coming through for my team in those big moments. And I know how to handle it better right now. But you're going to see a staff of pitchers because Lonnie Alameda is really big into all of these analytics of you cannot have one pitcher 3 times through the lineup. You just can't do it. The days of riding one arm here at the Women's College World Series are over. So you'll see a starter, you'll see a middle reliever, you'll see a closer. Kat Sandercock will come in and close. She might start. You know, like there's all kinds of different ways that they're going to use their pitching staff, and it's going to be fascinating. Is it good enough against this OU lineup? That's the big question.
Yeah, looking at Florida State's lineup, right? What they can accomplish at the plate. Do you think they have enough firepower?
They do. You know, the thing is, Lonnie Alameda said it this way. She's like, we look at our pitching lineups, like how many runs are we willing to give up? So they might give up, say like, hey, we can afford to give up 3 or 4 runs in this game because we know we have the firepower in our lineup to come back and get those. So they're going to take some risks in the circle with matchups and lefty on lefty or, you know, all these kind of things. Right now, I think they've got some great productivity. Their catcher, Michaela Edenfield, is just seeing the ball, simplifying her approach. I think she has something like 4 hits at the World Series and 3 of them are home runs, something like that. So she's seeing the ball very well. But then the other way they do it is getting these scrappy, fast players on base like Kaylee Mudge, Josie Muffley. They get them on base and they put pressure on your defense. So now OU's defense has 16 errors all year. They're the best defense in the country. So I don't know if that approach will work against OU, but we'll see. They'll put some pressure on them in this stage and try to scratch out some runs any way necessary.
We've known each other for a while now, and one thing I know you love is a female athlete that carries herself with a lot of confidence. So what do you think of Jordy Ball? I mean, just everything about her. It seems like she'd be
right
your
up my alley.
Yeah, right up your alley.
She's right up my alley for a couple things. She is an undersized pitcher. One of the things I really appreciate Jordy Ball is, I'm just trying to look at her height right here. I think Jordy's 5'8". In pitching, that's on the shorter side. But what I love about her is she is a workout monster. She's working out in the weight room on her own, away from the team 3 times a week, plus doing all the team lifts. You see her routine in the circle, and it is like gathering every bit of kinetic force and energy from the tippy toes to deliver that pitch. I just like her mindset. She's a baller. She's a competitor. She wants to win. And I love that she's doing it at her frame. And she's kind of like no nonsense. Like, this is how I do it. This is what I'm good at. And I'm just going to get all the rest of the noise out of my head.
I know you can't make a prediction or anything like that because you're going to be on the broadcast, but just how excited are you for this matchup?
Yeah, I'm really excited because this is kind of an Oklahoma team of destiny, 51 straight wins. Can they finish the win streak with a championship? We've seen long win streaks in sports before. I did a UConn 111 game win streak ended on a shot from Mississippi State's Morgan Williams. I did that game. So I know these streaks can end. I know they're not forever, but this team feels like a team of destiny. But I tell you what, if you got to sit down and meet with Lonnie Alameda of Florida State and meet with her players, you would fall in love. These are wonderful players, wonderful women, just kick-ass girls. The shortstop, one last story, the shortstop, Josie Muffley, she has suffered a broken neck, a broken back, a broken ankle, a broken wrist. Many of those were from when she was a hockey player. Didn't start playing softball until her junior year of high school, which is unheard of. And here she is starting for Florida State in the World Series. So take a look at the shortstop, Josie Muffley. You'll fall in love with her as well. But I just think it's a team of destiny with a team that's going to have to play perfect and feisty and aggressive and unconventionally to try to upset that team of destiny.
I love everything you're giving me about Florida State, but I hope they lose, Holly. I can't lie. I hope they lose.
I love your OU Sooner fanness. I will never fall.
I mean, I am the way I am. All right. Well, you're the best. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you at the stadium on Wednesday.
I know. Thank you for loving softball, for getting into it. You are there in the stands. Your 5-week-old baby's in the stands with you. Like, if nobody loves softball more than you and your wife, Caroline, I don't know who it is. So I'm grateful for you and your support of softball. You've just been amazing.
Have a great call.
Thank you.